So you've taken the homesteading plunge. You've got your raised beds installed in your backyard, probably gotten chickens. Maybe you've even planted a few fruit trees or fruit bushes. You could have even gone big and purchased several acres of property, planted more things, gotten more animals, and by now you are no doubt enjoying some of the fruits of your labor. And maybe your homestead's producing not only food for your family, but a source of income as well. Well, congratulations. You're doing the right thing. And you may have a large garden that produces lots of food for you, chickens that produce eggs. But are you dependent on outside sources to keep those things going? Do you have to buy your seeds, transplants, fertilizers, organic amendments shipped on a truck from some other place? Do you have to make that weekly or bi-weekly trip to the feed store, or your animals will die? What happens if the water, the electricity goes off, if there's a flood, a drought, or storm? Can your systems continue to function when you need them during those difficult times? Because those are the times that you're going to need them the most. Sometimes modern homesteaders have the illusion of self-sufficiency, but when you scratch the surface, you find out that they're just as dependent on everything working correctly as everyone else. So no matter where you're at on your homestead journey, we can all do a better job building in resiliency into our homestead systems. And what I mean by resiliency is the ability of that homestead or backyard garden to continue to produce what it produces for you in spite of external factors, such as extreme weather events or economic or social disruptions, or even more catastrophic events such as a collapse of the grid or the supply chain, or God forbid the internet go down and we can't ask questions of AI or have things delivered straight to our door at all hours of the day. I think one reason most folks get into homesteading to begin with is that desire for increased self-sufficiency. But without a system that is resilient, that can weather those disruptions and still produce what it needs to produce, then that self-sufficiency is greatly diminished. So if you're watching this video, you probably already understand that. But if not, then you are in the right place. And if you've only come across our channel for the first time, let me begin by quickly introducing myself. My name is Chris, and my wife Amy and I have been growing for market since 2002 here on our central Kentucky farm. We've also spent 4 years overseas studying sustainable agriculture, primarily focusing on smallholder scale sustainable systems. In 2015, I wrote a book called The Complete Guide to Survival Gardening, and with the intent to help people produce food during difficult times, such as we saw in 2020. So now it's been 10 years since I've written the book. I just realized that when I was starting to film this video. And over that 10 years, and in fact, over 20, 30 years of doing this, I've seen a resurgence in the homesteading movement, backyard gardening, and it's been a great thing to see. And for those of you that have taken part in this, for those of you that have supported and contributed to the local food system, I applaud you because it has made a big difference. And we don't make that many videos here on the farm because we are busy doing that very thing, providing food for our family and helping other people grow food for theirs. We do some permaculture design and consulting and some teaching. And one of the classes that I think is the most important that we teach here on the farm is building a resilient homestead. So while it's cold outside, and it is December here in Kentucky, I thought I would duck into the farm office and do a quick video just outlining the 6 main points that we talk about in the class of building a resilient homestead. I'll probably do some more videos on each of those aspects and go into more detail, but today I just wanted to sort of do a broad overview video. And at the end, I think I'll probably throw in that X factor that really makes the difference between resiliency and not. So stick with me until the end. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, go ahead and do that please now and hit your notification bell so when I do make other videos, you'll be well aware of them. So let's get started. The number one factor to consider in resiliency on a homestead is always water. And it's not just the presence or absence of water that is important and having it in sufficient amounts, but it's also the ability to collect, store, and distribute that water when you need it. You can collect precipitation or rainfall. You can use surface or groundwater, or as most people do, you can turn on a tap and there it is. But you do have to consider, what do you do if you turn on the tap and the water is not there? The key to resiliency here is to have multiple sources of water and the ability to store, distribute, and if needed, to clean and filter it. And that depends on the intended use. If you're using it for strictly irrigation or watering livestock, it doesn't have to be as clean as if you're using it as a drinking water source, or maybe you're using it as washing or something like that. So it really matters as far as the intended use of the water. And you do need it in sufficient quantities to accomplish all of these tasks on demand when you need it. A lot of things just can't wait on water. So yes, number one factor of resiliency on a homestead is water. A second major factor in a resilient homestead is a good quality fertile soil. In a property that has a good, well-balanced fertile soil, there's going to be productivity and resilience built into that entire homestead system. If you have poor soils that are not fertile, then that's going to affect the whole system. So soil is key in taking care of the soil you have. If you treat your soils well on your homestead or in your garden, and you maintain proper fertility, you add organic matter on a regular basis, and you fix any nutrient deficiencies, then that soil will be a source of resiliency and abundance for your homestead. But even before you get there, if you're thinking about relocating or buying property in a different area, look at the soils. I try to emphasize that to people I'm consulting with, because what you're doing when you're buying properties, you're essentially buying a big block of soil. Whether that's 8 inches deep or 6 feet deep, you're buying soil. And it's really hard to change that. You can't really change the texture. You can't change a lot of factors like the depth and stuff of the soil. You can improve it, but start with good soil and you'll be way ahead of the game. Number 3 is focus on food production. At the end of the day, the food production is what really matters. So if you have water taken care of, and you do need soil because that's where the food production comes from, but food production. So that's all you gardeners out there, all you folks that are raising chickens or rabbits or sheep or cattle. This is where your calories are going to come from, and the calories are going to keep you alive. So there's a lot of other things you can get distracted with, but spend most of your time learning how to produce food and how to produce that consistently in the right and the amounts of calories that you need to survive. Number 4 is livestock, which goes a lot along with food production. I have that in a separate category because I know some folks don't have the space or desire to keep livestock. And so they're probably going to focus on their vegetable production or fruit production and not have any kind of animals on the farm. But I do think a truly resilient and self-sufficient system has to have livestock. We can look at any system in nature, any kind of ecosystem out there, and it always has animals in it. There's no system on Earth that doesn't exist without animals being an integral part of that the whole system depends on. So our agro-ecosystems or our farms are the same thing. We really need those livestock for resiliency. And for many factors, number one, fertility. Where else are you going to get fertility on a farm except manure, except compost? You're probably not going to have a mine of phosphorus or potassium minerals on your farm. You can use legumes to capture nitrogen from the atmosphere, but animals can do all that for you and produce that into a movable form of manure that you can use and spread and recycle materials that you can't normally get any calories out of, like fibrous materials, grass, and forage and stuff like that. So they're important for the fertility factor, but they're also, as we talked about earlier, for food production. Livestock have always been this reserve source of calories. They're that ultimate backup food source that's just generally standing around there, waiting for you to need them to eat, to keep you alive. And the great thing about it is they reproduce themselves. When you have males and females, they make babies and they continue to reproduce themselves. So that's the great thing about livestock. In most every subsistence agricultural system around the world, there is livestock, and that doesn't have to be um, ruminants. Ruminants are a key to most systems, but it can be small animals. It could be quail. It could be rabbits or some other small animal in South America. Guinea pigs can be a part of the system. So either way, livestock, you're going to see livestock in resilient homestead systems. And some of the best livestock for a resilient homestead are those that produce a continual supply of food without having to be slaughtered for it. So you're talking about dairy here, dairy goats or sheep or cows. And that's why people like chickens. They're going to continue to produce eggs, a source of protein on a continual basis. So you just have to feed them and you're going to get some protein out. So those are the things we want to focus on, something that's going to continue to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient on a resilient homestead. Number 5 is structures and shelter. So I'm combining those two. This is straight out of permaculture design, water access and structures. Structures are very important. If you've ever been on an old homestead, one from the last century, maybe your grandparents or your great grandparents' place, one of the first things you should notice is the fact that there's lots of little buildings everywhere. There's lots of structures. There's little barns and sheds and shacks, and sometimes you don't even know what they're all for. But having a multitude of structures gives a homestead resiliency in order for housing of animals. A lot of times you'll see a smokehouse for smoking and storing meat. There'll probably be a root cellar. There'll probably be a place to store like hay and forage. So in small, different buildings with different temperatures and aspects are a lot more versatile than just having one large building. So a resilient homestead is probably going to look a little bit uh, crowded. Now you want to design these structures appropriately, especially if you're starting from scratch. You want to have them to be useful, have them out of materials that's going to last, and do that in a correct way. But a resilient homestead is going to have adequate structure on it to do all the things that you want to do. And number 6, on a resilient homestead, you're going to consider energy usage. So on a homestead right now, if you're using any kind of mechanical, electrical energy, it's probably coming from fossil fuels. So all you have to do here is to think of what you're using now and what you need it for and how you can replace that with sustainable sources. So if you need solar, if you need electricity, think about solar. If you need heating, think about wood. For the most part, I imagine most people are using some sort of fossil fuel energy now. So you can store a certain amount of that, but you really do need a sustainable backup that you can control, like our greenhouse fans. You need a solar system with batteries in order to run those fans. As many passive systems as you can install, the better. As far as heat, we use propane when we have it on a thermostat with electricity. But if we don't, we have a wood stove that's our backup heat. If we don't have that, then we've got some portable heaters that we can use. And if that fails, I guess we're out of luck, or we'll all sleep in the greenhouse that night, or we'll move some animals in there and use their body heat to heat the early transplants. So you have to have some backup plans for energy use. If it's mechanical energy, if you need to move water, if you need to do tillage, if you need to plow, then have a way to do that. Now, there's nothing wrong with using fossil fuels while you have them, but a resilient homestead has a backup plan. So whatever you do with fuel and energy, make sure you have another way to do that in a different way, and that will make your homestead a lot more resilient. There is a lot of stuff that we didn't cover, and we go into more details on all of these things in the class. But for now, I just wanted to introduce that topic to get you guys thinking about that, because I think it's a very important thing to think about, especially since I see things not really getting much better as far as society goes. And there's just more benefit to being able to produce, to grow your own food, and to supply the needs of your family on your own terms. So I did leave that one last factor, the X factor that makes a difference in survival. And I've seen this time and time again, especially in places like Africa where people live often on the margins of starvation and having enough. And that difference, that X factor, which allows these people to survive and these people not to survive, is community. And the people that survive depend on community to get them through. And you can't do any of these things. You can't be that self-sufficient homesteader on an island alone. You do have to have community. You can't do everything. You can't grow everything yourself that you want to grow. So you need people in your social network to rely on, to depend on, and to help each other out. So that's that X factor that you really can't ignore if you really want to have a truly resilient homestead. So I hope this was helpful to get you thinking about these things. My intent is to make some more videos specifically on some of the details and some of the practical aspects of these. But this was the introductory video to this series. And if the weather stays bad outside and I have time, I'm going to intend on making some more videos. It looks like the sun's coming out, so I'm going to probably go out to the orchard and prune this afternoon. But I always enjoy doing these. I just hope to do them more in the future. So if you want to see more videos or you have any questions, comment, please subscribe and like these videos, so that gives me a little more encouragement to produce some more. So thanks for joining us today, and until next time.